Hey everyone, I'm Pastor Jim, and we are here for another lunch recap. So, we've talked about part 3 of The Missing Link, and this particular message title was called Finding Where I Fit. There are many things that we've been talking about in terms of the purpose that God has for us. And He does have a purpose. And if you remember through Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 5, He said this, that He said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart. And I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." There is something that you have that God has placed in you, and it has been inside of you all of this time. There is a gift that you have. There is a purpose that you have. There is a plan that you have. He said this exact same thing to Jeremiah. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." He knew us, and He didn't just do it for Jeremiah and not do it for us. Before we were formed, He knew us. Before we were born, before we came out into this world, we were set apart and given a purpose by God Himself. And so one of the things that we've learned, especially from the last few messages, the last few lunch recaps, if you've been watching those, is that the Lord had a gift of mercy that He gave to Moses. He also had a gift of leadership and faith, a gift of miracles, to be able to allow God to work through him, to do the things that He did. The Lord knew Moses, and He had a purpose for him. And just like that, He knows it for you as well too. So just say this with me. God called me to do something. And that thing that you're called to do, whatever that thing may be, is going to be something that benefits somebody else. Because the reason God put us here, He put us here for others. He gave us a lot of gifts, but those gifts and those things that we had, they're not meant to benefit our lives so much as they are to benefit others. What did He tell the rich man? He said, "Listen, out of all the things that you've done a great job, but there's one thing that you lack. Take everything that you have, go sell it and give all of that money to the poor, then come follow me." Use your life to go and benefit somebody else. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, it says, "You, my brothers, were called to be free, but don't use your freedom to indulge in a sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love." We're called to be free, but don't use that freedom to indulge in the things that we want to do. But use that time to help somebody else. Use that time helping somebody, because God gave us a purpose that benefits other people, and that thing will make them better than where they are today. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, it says, "In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." Let your light shine. Let the thing that you have inside of you be the thing that shines, so that when people see it, they may praise your Father in heaven. All right. So there's another thing here, because it's telling us that the gifts that we have and the things that God has placed in us, they're not for us. They are for others. Rich man, you are rich because you use the things that you have for you, but take those things, use those gifts and those talents for somebody else. Then you can come follow me. There's another example here that we have in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 19 through 23. And just take a listen to this. "Though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone, to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law." Verse 21 says, "To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those who are not having the law." And 22 says, "To the weak, I became weak to win the weak." Now here it is. "I have become all things to all men, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings." So using what it is that we have, the purpose is to win people to God. What did He tell us? To go and make disciples of all nations, right? What we have and what we've been given are supposed to benefit other people. Romans chapter 15, verse 2, the New Century Version says, "Let each of us please our neighbors for their good, to help them to be stronger in faith." Now, one of the things that we know, and Christ said this as well too, that if we love Him, we will do what He's been doing. For example, here, what we have is in John chapter 13, verse 14. He says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet." That's serving, doing something good for one another. Verse 15, "I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." Jesus washed the feet of others. And he also said that he was the example for us. Now, when the disciples, the feet that he was washing, were the disciples not dirty? Were they not sinful? Did they not have their own issues? And more specifically, was one of those disciples not going to be the same one that was going to betray him and have him sent to the cross? Yet he washed that person's feet anyway. And so what we're saying is that if we have the example and Jesus is telling us that we should wash one another's feet just like he washed ours, then being a servant means that you can't just serve those that you like. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 10, New Century Version again says, when we have the opportunity to help anyone, we should do it. But we should give special attention to those who are in the family of believers. When we have the opportunity to help anyone, we should do it. Y'all, there are things that are placed in us. Those things are there for somebody else. We have to use those things to help point one another to God and make sure that they know that there is a God. I've said in the weeks past that Moses was sent to go and rescue the Israelites out of Egypt. They had been praying. They had been calling out to God saying, God, we need somebody to do something. God, make a way, open the door, do something. And so God called Moses. He placed compassion in Moses, leadership, faith, miracles. He placed all of these things in Moses, but there was a purpose and there was a reason. They were not for Moses himself, but it was to go and to rescue those who had desperately been praying for some type of deliverance. Same thing happens with us. The things that God has placed in us, it is for somebody who is praying right now for God to do something in their lives. So when's the best time for us to get started with what we have? Right now. Jesus says all throughout the Bible to go and take care of his sheep, to do for his people, to go and serve others. And in fact, actually, even in the message, I'm going to link here that we did this past Sunday. It's even more examples that we discussed. But the biggest deal is knowing that the things that you do, they should benefit somebody else. The things that God has placed in you, it is there to help benefit somebody else. So let's find out what that thing is today and get to moving with it, because somebody right now is praying and God is sending us to help them. So I hope that this was a blessing for you. And if it was, if you would give it a like, if you would share it with somebody, we greatly appreciate it. It helps the video. It helps us. It helps us to be able to spread the message in terms of the gospel to one another. You got something that you said, no, let's do something with it. Let's talk more about it. We got some more videos coming. We got some more messages coming. And I can't wait to share some of the other things that we have in store to talk about this, right? But until next time, I'm Pastor Jim. Y'all take care. God bless.